Electric vehicles aren't green because of the battery, and they are even worse than their gasoline or diesel counterparts. This is repeated so often that it sounds like common sense, but that's not true at all. Here is an example from the real world. BMW's latest iX3 Neue Klasse, when compared with its gasoline counterpart over lifetime emissions, that is over 200,000 kilometers, it reaches carbon parity after just 17,500 kilometers. Imagine that. That's just driving 1.5 years in Europe. And here's a twist. In some countries, it requires much longer to become carbon neutral with gasoline or diesel counterparts. But it has nothing to do with the car or its technology, rather where the car is located, where it is driving and where it is charging. In other words, the energy mix of the country. How much clean energy is available in the grid? That means how much renewable energy is part of the grid. To elaborate this point in detail, I will include an example from Daimler Electric Truck iX3 600 over lifetime emissions compared across different European countries. And you will be shocked to see that depending where you are driving and you're charging your electric truck, there could be a difference of 93% in lifetime emissions. Yes, in this video, I will be explaining BMW's latest iX3 Neue Klasse and the real numbers behind it. Hi, my name is Hasib. I'm an automotive engineer and I've been working in the automotive industry for over 10 years. 6 years into internal combustion engines and the last 4 years completely dedicated to e-mobility. And my goal with this channel is simple. No hype, no PR fluff, just pure analysis and engineering numbers. So without further ado, let's start. The EV emissions debate is always stuck in two extremes. The first one, that electric vehicles are clean, they are zero tailpipe emissions. And on the other side, there is another extreme that says that electric vehicles are much worse for the planet because they emit a lot of carbon dioxide during battery production. We are just simply stuck in this loop, discussing tailpipe emissions versus battery production emissions. But the truth is far more complex. And to really answer which is cleaner, we cannot just simply focus on tailpipe emissions or the factory smoke. We have to take a step back and look from the beginning till the end. That means from the very first stage of raw material mining all the way up to recycling. And this is called life cycle assessment or LCA. The main idea is to capture every gram of carbon dioxide that is being produced during the entire life cycle of the vehicle. So now let's look at BMW and how do they report their LCA. They break their LCA in 4 phases. So the first step is raw material extraction. This means mining, refining, and processing of the materials as well as battery minerals, for example. And for EVs, this stage has the highest carbon footprint because how energy intensive it is to produce battery cells. Second stage of the LCA is vehicle production. And here we talk about body manufacturing all the way up to assembly. And over here, the thing that matters the most is what is the energy source of the plant? How much renewables is it using? Third stage is use phase, and this is the phase where internal combustion engine cars rack up most amount of their emissions. Whereas for EVs in this phase, your grid decides basically how clean your car is. Is it excellent levels or is it just good levels? And the fourth stage of LCA is end of life recycling. And in this phase, we are talking about dismantling, separation of the materials, and reintegration of these extracted sources back into the manufacturing phase. And BMW has a design for circularity approach where they are targeting to reuse 33% of the materials. Before we jump into BMW's numbers, here's one thing to keep in mind. Your electric car is as good as the electricity you are feeding it. To explain this concept, I've used the example of Mercedes electric truck iX3 600 against their counterpart diesel truck. Why Daimler electric truck? Because it is one of the hottest selling long-haul trucks at the moment. That means it is primarily used for long-haul applications, meaning 120,000 kilometers per year, and over 10 years, it means 1.2 million kilometers. A comparable diesel truck will emit around 944 tons CO2 equivalent. But if you're going to use Daimler electric truck in Germany, you are going to reduce the emissions by 26%. And here is where it gets really interesting and surprising. Without doing anything to the electric truck, without changing its battery, its payload, if you drive the same truck in Norway, you can reduce up to 96% emissions compared to the diesel truck. Or if we just compare from Germany to Norway, it's a difference of 93%. That's staggering. And why the difference is so huge? Because Norway's grid is 98% running on renewable sources, and just 89% of that is coming from hydro plants. Whereas in Germany, 46% of the energy is still being produced by fossil fuels, primarily from coal, and that's why the carbon emissions are on a completely different scale. So this isn't a failure of the technology, it's a proof that the infrastructure is part of the product. Now, before I break down the BMW's number, I think I have to give some context about it, because I think the BMW iX3 Neue Klasse is going to be the most important electric car they are going to launch. This will be the car that will either make them or break them. And why am I stressing this so much right now? Because next month, BMW is going to unveil and launch this car at IAA in Munich, Germany. So far, they have kept the details relatively quite hidden, but this car launch isn't just a subtle facelift. It's going to define how BMW is going to manufacture and what trajectory they are going to take in terms of e-mobility. So they have redesigned this car right from the scratch, from the manufacturing, then the battery architecture is different, as well as the feature they are presenting is also different when it comes to interacting and supplying the energy back to the grid or your home. So that's why I'm calling it as a reset. And so far what I've seen on paper, it looks like they are able to create their cleanest and the most capable electric vehicles they have yet produced. And how do they achieve it? Let's dive it a bit into the details. So let's start with the manufacturing. It starts in Debrecen, Hungary, BMW's brand new blueprint factory for the Neue Klasse era. This site isn't just clean, it's record-breaking. So each BMW iX3 Neue Klasse that will roll out of Debrecen, Hungary will have a manufacturing carbon footprint of just 0.1 tons CO2. And here's a fun fact. If they would have produced this BMW like the other BMWs they are producing at other plants, so that means in Debrecen, they are saving 85% carbon dioxide emissions. To put that in perspective, if you produce a car in Debrecen, it's like traveling from Berlin to Amsterdam one time. And if you're producing this car at different BMW plants without any changes, that means you can do this trip 7 times. So this plant is entirely running on renewable energy. So far, a lot of energy is coming from solar, which are on site. I think around 25% of the energy being used right now is directly from the solar plants installed there. And the rest of it is coming from 100% renewable sources as well. But to save on the manufacturing carbon footprint, they are not just implementing the changes on themselves. It starts right from the beginning, extraction of raw materials, and they are making sure that the suppliers, the key suppliers, are also following extremely tight measures when it comes to production of battery materials with renewable sources. Another change BMW has done is under the hood, or in EVs, let's say under the floor. So they are using generation 6 of their battery cells, and this will be the first time they are moving from prismatic cells to cylindrical cells. This change boosts their energy density by 20% and slashes the carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour by 42%. So half of the cobalt, lithium, and nickel that is being used in the production of these battery cells is secondary source, which means they have been recycled and integrated back into the production, which means less mining efforts and hence less emissions. So far, I've known about their biggest battery, which will be 107.9 kilowatt hours net. And with that, it can travel 800 kilometers WLTP, and it can charge with a staggering 400 kilowatts. So if you're able to find a 400 kilowatt charger and you're standing there alone, this means you can charge up to 350 kilometers of range or 43% SOC in just 10 minutes. So I haven't seen the charging curve yet. I'm just following the BMW words. It means that it's going to be quite steep curve. It's not going to be drop off. It's going to be more like a plateau where the car is going to charge with extreme power over extended period of time. Recently, Renault also launched their R5, which is vehicle to grid compatible, and I've seen their results, but they're using an AC wall box. In the case of BMW iX3 Neue Klasse, they're going to use a DC wall box of around 19.2 kilowatts, and with that, they can deliver the energy back to the grid, or they can even charge their home, and also it's going to support vehicle to load capability. So if you have made this far in this video, so you are a true enthusiast. I respect it. But before we start, here's a quick fun fact. The BMW iX3 Neue Klasse is so clean that even if you charge with, let's say, European grid, which is not the cleanest one over lifetime, and compare it with BMW iX, which has the highest carbon footprint in BMW portfolio, and if you charge it with 100% renewable, the iX3 still beats it. So just absorb it for a moment. Yes, true. So here is the direct comparison of BMW iX3 Neue Klasse versus its gasoline counterpart over lifetime, which BMW calls a period of 10 years and 200,000 kilometers. So if you're driving on the dirty European grid, you will reach the carbon parity at just 21,500 kilometers, which is 56% lower life cycle emissions compared to gasoline counterpart. And if you're going to charge it primarily with 100% renewable sources, you're going to hit the carbon parity at just 70,500 kilometers, which is astonishingly 72% lower carbon footprint over lifetime. And if you consider a driving cycle in Germany, where an average person drives 12,300 kilometers, with the renewable sources, you will be able to break even in just 1.5 years. If you consider a company car, a fleet driver, they are usually traveling around 25 to 30,000 kilometers. It's a matter of just 1 year, or even less than that. So as a fun experiment, I decided to look at BMW's portfolio. So I looked at 2 Series, 3 Series, and 5 Series. And I compared the electric vehicles versus their gasoline counterparts. And you can see that the manufacturing carbon footprint of gasoline cars is roughly 9 to 11 tons CO2. But over the lifetime, which is 10 years, 200,000 kilometers, they can reach up to 44 to 52 or 53 tons CO2. Whereas electric vehicles have a much higher manufacturing carbon footprint from 17 to around 21 tons CO2. But that means there is a huge chunk to be removed with efficient measures. And that's what BMW has done with iX3. So with the measures they have taken, that is including secondary source of materials and producing with 100% renewable energy, not just at their factory, but also at suppliers and along the logistics, they have reduced the manufacturing carbon footprint of iX3 from baseline by up to 35%, the highest in their portfolio. And you can see it in the results of 5 Series and 3 Series. So 5 Series using the European grid reaches carbon parity at around 55,000 kilometers, or with 100% renewable around 40,000 kilometers, whereas the 2 Series reaches carbon parity on European grid at around 47,000 kilometers and with 100% renewable at 31,000 kilometers. And yes, BMW iX3, 21,500 kilometers on European grid and 17,500 kilometers on renewables. You see this staggering difference. So now coming to the conclusion of the video, I think BMW iX3 is going to be their make or break vehicle when it comes to e-mobility. All German OEMs we know are struggling when it comes to European. Prime example would be Audi. I checked out their job portal last week and I was shocked to see that it used to have 200 to 300 job listings at a given time. But that day it was just 49 job listings. And the surprising fact, only one full-time job, and that too for a doctor. No engineering, no product development, no R&D. All of the rest positions were internships, traineeships, basically. And so far, the signs for BMW are very promising. The car is built from scratch, I would say. It has completely different level of charging power. It is integrating new features like vehicle to grid. And on the sustainability front, it is going to be their cleanest car and the most capable car. So I think BMW has done a great job. Now let's see how the customers are going to perceive this car, because the success depends if the customers are going to accept this car or not. So I wish BMW a lot of success with iX3 Neue Klasse. And if you found my video insightful, kindly consider liking my video, sharing it, as well as subscribing to my channel. If you want to understand the deep insights, and also if you want to remain up to date, I publish my newsletter, which is much more in-depth than this video. So kindly subscribe to my newsletter. And also if you're not a fan of watching videos, I have a podcast as well. So you can listen to that as well, making coffee or maybe driving. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.